I just want to throw it to Aislinn, and I get to say one more thing.
Do it.
There's more.
There's more. There's already enough, Liam.
Yeah.
You think we need more?
Yeah, you want to
หมุนเหรอ
throw another layer on top of this, Liam?
Yeah.
You crazy man.
Well, yes, you are correct. There is.
กลับมายัง
There are Horadric jewels. Horadric jewels
Horadric
are
jewels.
what you might be reminded by. Well, you might be reminded. Excuse me, I can speak English. Occult gems from season 7. They are very similar to occult gems from season 7. We have a lot of similar effects on Horadric jewels that you might have seen from season 7 occult gems.
เน็ตถูกปะ
We've added
ไม่
lots of new shiny
AS
layers of paint and glorious effects to these Horadric jewels.
บวก
And we've
เกาะ
also
ออ
really
เลซิส
brought them in and both aesthetically and mechanically.
ถ้าจะตาย
with Horadric
prevent
spells.
damage นั้น
So what you're
ไม่
going
รั
to
บ
be doing
damage
is you're
3
going
วิ
to be finding these
จบละ
Horadric
ผมใส่อันนี้ก็จบละ
tomes starting in
ถูกปะ
21.
ผมใส่ลิลิตลงสกิลฮิตเดียวปุ้งแทนที่ผมจะตายผมรอด
Craft these Horadric jewels. You can then, once you've found the tome,
ตอนนี้ผมกลับมายังเนี่ย
take
ใน
it
YouTube
to
กลับมายัง
a crafting station and actually craft it with the seasonal currency Horadric files and gem fragments. And don't worry, it's not as many gem fragments as occult gems if you have PTSD from that like I do.
It was a little expensive back then.
It was a lot. And yeah, you can then just socket them into your jewelry sockets and just pump up your build even further. And what our first example here is Liminal Echo, which you might actually recognize as an occult gem in terms of a cheat death. But we have reflavored it and rethemed it and changed its mechanics to actually invoke propulsion, which is a different one of the catalysts that we didn't actually show here, but you will see that in the PTR. And it makes you invulnerable, and then it has an ICD. But yeah, we have way more Horadric jewels than just that. There are 15 total. They all do lots of crazy different stuff. So we're going to go over some of our favorite here just to give you guys a sneak peek. So the first one is Tyrant Bane. You can look over that text there, and you might think to yourself, is this Bane of the Stricken? And the answer would be, yes it is. If you are a D3 enjoyer, it is Bane of the Stricken for dot builds. I'm very personally excited about that one. The second one we have is the Starflux. This one is fantastic. It's just punch you in the teeth, straight value, double your catalyst damage. That's a lot of damage though, so if you do want to do that, you're probably going to lose control of your Horadric spellcraft to some degree, which causes your catalysts to inherit their infusions.
เดี๋ยวนี้โกงไปเปล่าวะเนี่ย
So you don't actually get to
โดนดอทและ
control
แรงขึ้นเรื่อย
decide rather,
ทุกครั้งที่
how
โด
that's
น
going to happen. And then finally, we have Idol from Below. You may also recognize this effect from occult gems, but with a twist. I mean, the twist is it's probably fine.
Jeweled Guardians, I bet they're pushovers, but don't worry about it.
No.
Worry about it.
No, to focus on the first line for that one. That's the important part.
Primary core stat, max life, unhindered, great stuff.
Absolutely.
Nothing else to worry about.
YouTube กลับมายังครับ
All
ทวิชกลับมายัง เป็นไง
I
บ้าง
think we have a video of the Starflux to kind of give you a sense of what that is like. So this is the Cosmic Anomaly Catalyst with the Starflux equipped. And you might notice that they have different infusions applied to them because it's determined randomly each time a new Cosmic Anomaly comes out. And this can be really actually interesting
สุ่ม
because
ธาตุ
Sam, to your point before, different infusions deal with different enemy affixes. So if you have the Starflux equipped and Cosmic Anomalies, you might actually be able to deal with a bunch of different enemy affixes simultaneously, which is pretty cool.
Exactly, and just look at that kaleidoscopic explosion, right?
Yeah.
So satisfying. It's so beautiful.
Absolutely. And we have, like I said, we have 15 Horadric jewels, and all of them do various wacky, amazing, cool stuff. So while you're experimenting with Horadric spellcraft and trying out all of the new things in Season 9, slot some of those in and see what kind of madness you can accomplish.
Yeah, not gonna lie, chat was pretty excited about the Horadric jewels. And like the Starflux, it looks absolutely nutty. I'm really pumped to test it out. A few call-outs for everyone watching as well. We will have a Q&A towards the end of the stream, so if you do have any questions for our development team, any questions for Dan, like what's the best way to make poutine gravy from scratch, you know, he's your guy for it. So we will have that towards the end of the stream, so drop your questions.
มาไวเวอร์ใน YouTube ขึ้นใหม่เป็นรวดเร็ว Okay.
Pulling those, and again, like we want your feedback. That was a ton of information, a ton of systems, and we actually do have specific things that we're looking
บอ
for
สบาเวอร์ได้ไปต่อไหม
in terms of
ไม่ได้
what
ครับ
we're seeking for each
ของประจำซีซั่นแค่นั้น
component going in the 230 PTR.
Yeah, that's true. Like, you know, I guess I'll speak specifically to Horadric jewels. Gotta make sure I get the terms right. Yeah, so we want to hear what you guys think about all the different Horadric jewels. We want to know, like, do these effects feel correct? This is the perfect time to give feedback on just straight up balancing. Does this give you enough bonus damage? Does this give you too much bonus damage? Does this feel good? Does it not feel good? Are the Jewel Guardians?
I don't worry about them.
Yeah, no, don't give us feedback on that part. It's
Maybe you
fine.
should worry about them, you know? Maybe they need to get a little...
เอวีห่วยๆก็จะมี AV จากพวกนี้
But yeah,
ใช่ถ้ามา
let
ใช้
us know about Horadric Jewels, and of course, I'm sure you'd love to hear people's thoughts about
Definitely.
that.
For Horadric spells, please just let us know how it feels both in early and late game. I know it's
แน่นอนใน PTR อยากได้ข้อมูลว่า late game early game
early game is also really helpful. We want them to
จะรู้สึก
feel
ยังไงเวลาใช้จริง
satisfying to use in all realms of content. We also just want to know about the effects themselves. Are they satisfying? Does anything feel off? Do we need to like tighten up cooldowns or things like that? Just get into the weeds with it. We will definitely be reading through as much as we can and making these spells the best they can be for launch.
Yep, now's the time to get that feedback, tune those knobs. It's the best time to do it. And for everyone watching from home, we also will have the D4 patch notes and the blog hitting after the stream. So if there's anything you missed on the stream, that will be available for you to read in depth and disseminate over the weekend before you jump into the PTR. But I know one of the biggest parts of the patch notes has to do with class balance, and we do have some.
class balance น่าจะเป็นจุดที่หลายๆคนรอดูอยู่
I got some notes here. We got lots to talk about. You know,
กระดาษหนาอยู่นะ ตรง Charles Dunn
kind of think about class balance currently. But of course, it's
ยังไม่ค่อยว้าวอะไร
a changing process, and we always want to be giving new things to play with, new ways to play Diablo 4, and so there's lots of updates this season with that in mind.
Yeah.
So let's get into some of the changes that affect all classes in some way before getting into each individual
บัตร
class.
เวฟตัวเนี่ย overpower โดน
These are kind of changes that are
overpower โดน
or
อย่างแรกเลย
So first up, overpower has been overpowered for a while. We should have seen that coming with the name. Oops. Yeah, it has been
Nerf overpower ครับ
just one of the strongest things you can be doing across any class for the past handful of seasons now. And so we're definitely taking a big swing at it here in season 9. So overpower's initial design philosophy was it was supposed to be a stat that tankier kind of builds, things that have like that strong defensive fantasy, things like Werebear, Barbarians, Blood Necro, could build these defensive stats like max health and fortify and convert that into offensive power. That's the initial design conception of it, and which is why whenever you did overpower, you got bonus damage based on the amount of maximum life and fortify that your character had. This ended up being a lot because it was kind of
ทุกซีซั่นจะมี unique ใหม่ใช่ไหมใช่
ratio of how much of health you already had. I don't want to get in too deep into the math here, but basically it was a lot of additive damage. So it would be the equivalent of you having like plus 1,000 or more % damage on your gear when you overpowered. And that led to overpowers being extremely strong, far more
นะ อย่างที่บอกแหละ OP ไป
for instance.
And even
ตามชื่อ
builds that originally weren't intended to benefit from that so much.
Yeah, we saw it just every class was trying to overpower because it was so valuable.
Yeah.
Probably also didn't help that it's already so good to just stack max life, right? So it was like you're doing a ton of damage and you're doing the right thing by stacking max life because it's so potent, right? So it was very dominant for that reason.
Right, and so in this season, in season 9, we're going to be making an update to that additive portion, the additive damage that you get from the overpower, that messy behind-the-scenes formula that you would get. Essentially reducing it by 80%. So if you used to get 1,000% bonus damage there, it's only going to be 200 here in the PTR.
Nerf overpower เคยแรงเท่าไหร่คูณ 0.2 เคยแรงล้านหนึ่งเหลือ 200,000 เคยแรงพันล้าน
So it's still going to be powerful.
เหลือ 200 ล้าน
It's going to be better than not doing it, but it won't be
พูดตรงคือ Nerf 5 เท่า
definitely far ahead like we've seen it. We definitely want a lot of feedback on this because we know it's been the real big talking point of a lot of different meta builds right now. Feels like you need to work on overpower. That's not the intent. We don't want everybody to feel like you have to do it all the time. In order
ไม่อยากทำให้รู้สึกว่าต้องบังคับเล่น overpower ถึงจะเล่นได้
possibilities to other classes. Kind of tie in with that, the additive damage rebalance.
additive damage damage ที่เขียนว่าบวกบวกบวก
Another contributing factor was that whenever you got overpowered damage on your items, it was just overstated. We balanced those initially when earlier on in the game's lifetime when we had a different estimate of how often players would be overpowering or doing any of these kind of conditional effects like critical strike or dot damage or what have you. So we've done kind of a comprehensive pass on items, the base affixes that show up this season and said, okay, critical strike damage, we're going to give you an equivalent amount of critical strike damage and overpower damage if it appears in the same spot. Previously, it was something like you would get a one-handed weapon, and it would literally have almost 200% overpower damage and Ancestral, and it would give like 55% critical strike damage.
มอดเพิ่มน้ำหนักมอดคริต
Way too different.
นอกจากจะเนิร์ฟโอเวอร์พาวเวอร์แล้วยังเพิ่มน้ำหนักมอดอื่นที่อยู่ในของให้เลขใกล้เคียงกับโอเวอร์พาวเวอร์
We're looking to renormalize that and kind of establish a better baseline of comparison of these stats against each other. This affects everybody in some way. As you're building your items, you're going to be looking for different stats. The numerical values will be different there. But we think it gets into a much better state for allowing you to go, for vulnerable damage, for crit damage, for summons damage, and not feel like you're doing it wrong because it wasn't overpower, right? Next, we've got a basic skill
buff. Basic skill.
There's a lot of things that affect every class this season. So talking about basic skills, this is kind of an initiative where we are starting here to really comprehensively look at all of the skills in the game and look at their relative balance against each other. And sometimes we've had some basic skills which just do negative damage. You think like you're healing the enemies by attacking because it's so weak, and other ones that you can actually like really build a full kind of basic skill build around because it has a lot of support, has good base damage, has whatever effects. We've done a comprehensive pass on every single basic skill in the game and retuned them. And when I say retuned, I say double or triple their damage output for the most part. Literally skills that used to do like 20% of your weapon damage now do like 60 or 80%. Just massive increase
คูณดาเมจของสกิลเบสิกที่ไม่ค่อยมีคนใช้
Now that's to help
3-4 เท่า
heat kind of right out of the box. You get a basic skill, you press the button, it feels impactful. That's the goal. We do want still basic skill oriented builds in the late game to exist, but of course if we just tripled or their damage output, that would cause some of them to be kind of way too good on some ends.
Yes.
So we have adjusted some of the scalars that you see on some of the legendary and unique items that talk to basic skills in particular, brought them down a little bit. We still want them to be competitive and probably better this season than they have been in the past, but we're just we're not trying to triple every single basic skill. We want to make sure that it smooths out that progression.
Right.
I will say that this is, we looked at basic skills here in this season. It's an initiative where we're going to be looking at other categories of skills in future seasons. So definitely keep an eye on.
แน่นอนว่าซีซั่นนี้โฟกัสไปที่เบสิกสกิลแต่ซีซั่นหน้าก็อาจจะโฟกัสไปที่สกิลอื่น Core Mastery.
Feedback on exactly how we landed on this basic skill pass is really helpful to help inform like, hey, is our methodology, our comparison right, and were the tuning on these accurate. Next up, maximum resistance. This is a relatively quicker point. So right now on live, if your maximum resistance for every element is capped at 70%. Now on the PTR, it'll be capped at 75% baseline, so everyone can get a little bit more resistance. The absolute cap is still 85 if you get some maximum resistance.
Max Leas cap ที่85เหมือนเดิม
You'll get 75 resist in order to be resistance capped. In exchange, there were some unique items that were that had just a whole bunch of all resistance on them, like Yen's Blessing, some boots that just gave you like 50-some% maximum resistance to all elements. Those ones
too much of it a little by itself.
Yeah, exactly. So some of those outliers that really solved your resistance a little too easily, we're going to tone those down a little bit. But kind of in exchange, we give
Aurelius หายากขึ้น
the option to build a little bit more to make sure that
ซอไม่มีปัญหาเนโคไม่มีปัญหา Barbarian ต้องไปดูว่าจะเล่นยังไง
And finally, on this slide that affects all characters, the key passives.
Key passive ได้รับการปรับปรุง
Like with basic skills, to look at our various key passives that affect every build, and kind of look at their relative power level. And a lot of the outliers that we've seen in class balance historically have come from a key passive that just scales kind of infinitely, right? You build up some critical strike damage, which increases your other damage, and that just scales infinitely. And that causes builds that can use that key passive to be far more powerful than builds that use other key passives.
Key passive ทำให้บิวโกงสาระสำคัญตอนนี้อาจจะมีการแคป Key passive เป็นเปอร์เซ็นต์ดาเมจบางอันอยู่
And we've set a bar of about 75% multiplicative damage bonus. So if it just said do increase damage, it would say 75% increase. Now, some will have more conditions. It only affects certain types of damage, and so we budget those at a little bit higher, and so on. But anything that had like a previous uncapped scalar, we're going to put a cap on it to make sure that it kind of hits that 75% mark. And even a handful of some key passives that were underperforming that mark, that were not quite that good, have gotten buffed up to try to let them compete. And so builds that got some of those buffed key passives will be really happy to see that too.
Absolutely.
I guess
ไม่ได้เนิร์ฟอย่างเดียวมีการบัฟด้วย
we're not the fun police, right?
No.
We're not coming here to ruin your day, but what we are doing is we want to make a more consistent experience for our players. And we want the pieces to fit together naturally. Your progression is smooth. There's all these puzzle pieces. They just make sense as you stack
มานานยัง
them
ประมาณ
up.
เกือบชั่วโมงแล้วครับ
And we want to move away from having such extreme outliers.
Yeah, the extreme balance outliers are really what kind of can kill the fun of the game. If you're like, hey, I want to play, whatever kind of build you want, but then you see somebody else doing something different, and you're like, oh, they are 100 times better than me. It actually does affect how much fun you're having because you feel like you're playing suboptimally. And by kind of bringing some of these more in line to a kind of a budget of power that we want from certain sources, we help to eliminate those outliers that are like miles ahead of everybody else. With that in mind, we
พี่ยารอบนี้มาตอนไหนยังไม่แน่ใจเลยครับ น่าจะเป็นประมาณเดือน
Of course, as you
คิดว่า
can play more options, and it won't feel as bad that you aren't being left behind in such a way. All right, so let's move on to the individual class changes. Those affect everybody, but of course, every class gets some new stuff to talk about here.
แน่นอนของใหม่แต่ละคลาส
We've got Barbarians.
Barbarian มีอะไรดีครับ
The Barbarian.
Earthquakes
Talk of them for a while has been
จุด
Earthquakes
ที่จะ
in
ปรับ
particular. Barbarians.
Legendary Paragon ทำให้ง่ายขึ้น
Stomp on the ground,
แล้วก็
they
Basic
jump so
Skill
hard that they
Cleave
make some earthquakes.
Unique
Those have been extremely powerful for a handful of seasons, and we know that there's other fantasies to explore in Barbarian other than just Earthquakes, and so we have done some updates to kind of bring down some of the power level of
Nerf
Earthquake.
Earthquake พูดตรง
Its legendary Paragon node, the Force of Nature, that gave it a ton of multiplicative damage on the Earthquakes. That has been brought down quite a bit. To the second bullet point here, a lot of the legendary Paragon nodes in Barbarian, Paragon, and across every other class has been kind of simplified. Some of them used to have effects, which was like, do a thing to get a buff, to give you some damage, and it stacks up to 5 times, right?
Yeah.
It would be like kind of a multi-step thing for a Paragon node, which we thought that's maybe a little bit more complex. It's asking you a little bit too much. So we've simplified them, and often it's just like, hey, do a thing, get a bonus, and that's it.
Right.
And specifically on Barbarian, I think they got some of the bigger updates in that regard. And in a lot of cases, the Paragon become even more powerful because you don't need to stack it up 5 times or whatever it might be. You just get the bonus right out of the gate. So
Hey,
they are
Charles.
slightly more powerful.
Could you say Barbarians are getting a seismic shakeup?
เล่นมุก Earthquake
A little bit.
แต่
On some of these,
ตลกดิ
may feel that way, yes. Additionally, we've got a new unique item this season. We know that players love playing with a bash cleave from a while back, and now what if every other one of their basic skills could cleave?
จะเกิดอะไรขึ้นถ้าสกิลเบสิกทุกสกิลของ Barbarian
It's
Cleave ได้
my favorite named unique in this season, which is saying something.
It's true.
It is the Hooves of the Mountain God.
So good.
Hoof of the Mountain God
Hooves of the Mountain God. Whenever you attack with a basic skill while
กี
you're
บ
at max
เทพเจ้า
fury,
ภู
you
เขา
kind of enter this state where your fury is going to be draining, and you're kind of empowered here. And during that time, your
Basic skill ตีกระจาย
deal increased damage. All of your basic skills will do that while you're empowered here. And of course, your fury is draining, so you're going to want to keep spamming those basic skills to rebuild it back up and kind of maintain that state as long as possible.
Yeah, so at this point, with this unique, you really care about generating a tremendous amount of fury, but it's not actually to cast a core, it's just to keep going.
Yeah, keep going and keep hitting with your basic skills that are just hitting hard and cleaving all around you.
It's pretty awesome.
We got a video clip here of this in action. Of course,
ขอดู
we've
หน่อย
seen Bash cleave before through some of the tempering affixes. That tempering affix is going to be updated to give
ไม่อยากดูแบดอยากดูสกิล
a
อื่น
bonus to Bash here, but because now it can cleave through this unique, and of course you can mow through a whole
หรือที่คนเรียกว่า Battle Fury
with your Bash while your fury is draining.
Yeah, I love that. The part that's coming up where, yep, one hit, they're just all to the side.
Oh, yeah.
มันเก่งอยู่แล้ว ปกติมันแรงมันแค่ตีเป้าเดียวถูกปะล่ะ ทีนี้มันการันตีคลีฟได้มันก็สบายแล้ว
Talk about. All right, so the Druid this season.
Cataclysm โดนเนิร์ฟแน่นอน
Been Cataclysm for a while. A couple points on that. So a lot of Cataclysm, it's this long-lasting ultimate, right? You press Cataclysm, you get the storm around you, it lasts a while. And it suffered from some like what we call snapshotting, where
โดนเนิร์ฟ snapshot Cataclysm ก็เลยไม่เก่งเหมือนเดิม
hey, your next skill cast does increase damage, or it has some effect. And when you press Cataclysm, it's obviously a very long effect, and it benefits from that effect, from the bonus damage to your next cast.
วันนี้ผมจะได้สั่งยำมาม่าไม่ต้องเห็นมียำมาม่า
your next cast, we mean the whole cast. Cataclysm is a great thing to do that on. That being said, we do find that Cataclysm being the only way to play Druid, or at least the only kind of competitive way to play Druid, is not.
Nerf Cataclysm, Nerf Earthquake.
Mechanically intensive play style that you need to think about buffs. You need to set it up kind of precisely.
เขาบอกว่ามันยากไปไม่อยากให้ดูอิดเล่นบิลยาก
We love to encourage that. But when it becomes the only way or the absolute best way, the kind of
ไม่อยากให้เป็นทางเดียวในการเล่นดูอิด
that's kind of unhealthy. And so
มันยากเกิน
we've done some numerical nerfs to bring Cataclysm and some of the modifiers to it down to earth a little bit, so it will allow for other opportunities.
บัตรเวฟไม่น่ารอดบัตรเวฟถ้าไม่ต้องเนิร์ฟเลยครับแต่คงโดนแหละเพราะมันเนิร์ฟโอเวอร์พาวเวอร์8 เท่า80%โทษที
We've got updates to a lot of legendaries that used to talk to Grizzly Rage, and that does also remind me about what we're doing with legendaries this season as we talk about this. We've always had a new unique item and a new legendary aspect.
ให้ดูนี่ Splashing Poison.
We're just going to be doing a brand new unique item, and we're instead doing reworks to a lot of existing legendaries. So a handful of legendaries on each class have been rather substantially reworked, where we looked at them and we said, hey, we have a legendary that already talks to Grizzly Rage, but it kind of sucked. Right? And we said, well, rather than make a brand
ตอนเวล160ซื้อไหนเวลยากกัน100ครับ60ง่ายมากแค่พารากอนมันเก็บยาก
It may still have, the same kind of theme, same kind of niche, probably keeps the same name in a lot of cases. But instead of like adding a brand new legendary aspect that kind of dilutes the drop pool, right? Every legendary we add makes it harder to find any in particular legendary.
You also don't want a situation where like if we leave that aspect not desirable, but then we make a new one that is, you're like, oh man, I really hope I find the good one and not the bad one.
ดาเมจดอทจะมาของบูสต์ดาเมจดอทโกงมากครับผมอยากเล่นบิลดอทเนโคซีซั่นนี้มีเบรคคอนเทนต์เพิ่มไหมครับมีครับเรียกว่ามีแล้วกันขอดูหน่อยดิกระจายพิษอ่ะ
Several ones talking to Grizzly Rage and Poison in particular are going to be updated.
So benevolent of us finding homes for all these legendaries. It's great. Like now they have a home to go to. They actually hopefully find a new niche to fit into, and they won't be so sad off to the side. And people pick them up and they're like, no, in the gutter.
Yeah, that's absolutely the hope is that we're able to look at every legendary and unique item in the game and say, hey, you pick it up and you read it and you're like, oh, I see where this would be useful. And you would feel excited about it. It might not be the build you're currently playing, but you see that it does have a home and a niche. That's our goal. And we know that a lot of legendaries in the game right now aren't hitting that mark, and that's why we're focusing on reworks, at least for this season.
Right.
With that in mind, with Grizzly Rage and some Poison updates, let's talk about probably one of my favorite visual uniques of the season.
Visual unique.
Splashing Poison Puddle, right? Because
Splashing Poison Puddle.
Here, everyone loves splashing in the sun, playing in the water, but we're in Diablo in the World of Sanctuary, and nothing's ever that wholesome. It's Poison Puddle.
แล้วขอดูหน่อย ขอดูหน่อย
The Rotting Lightbringer.
Rotting Lightbringer.
The Rotting Lightbringer, every 10 seconds when you cast Pulverize, it'll form a poison puddle where you pulverize. And if you pulverize that puddle again, then it'll splash additional % of that damage to enemies nearby.
พุด
It'll like throw off
Pulverize
little
ระเบิดพิษ
projectiles of poison. And of course you are
ขอดูเกมเพลย์นะ
in the poison puddle to
ขอดู
damage everyone around it.
Sounds horrifying.
โหนดพิษระเบิดพื้นพิษกระจาย
Yeah,
หมีพิษ
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. This is fun in the sun.
This is great fun in the sun. I think we got a video clip here of this in action, right? Of course, we're at the beach.
Yeah.
Where else would you be? You splash, make a poison puddle, and as you do that, little globs of poison go out and hit the enemies around you.
And this is also marrying the concept of like poison, the the theme in Druid of poison and werebear, which has typically been for specifically werewolf, but now we're seeing it here too.
Druids are the master of kind of this hybridization and mixing and matching these things. So we always love encouraging you finding ways to mix these up.
Right.
All right, enough on Druid. Let's talk about the Necromancer. So the Necromancer has had some powerful ultimates as well. This is going to be a common theme. A lot of ultimate skills have been quite powerful.
Soul Rift.
In particular, Soul Rift and
Blood Wave.
Now, Soul Rift is a skill which does everything, right? It does damage. It gives you increased damage. It applies vulnerable. It gives you resource. Gives you barrier. It restores your potion charges.
Yes,
oh my goodness.
So many potions.
So we looked at all these things and said, well, we could just chop down the numbers on some.
ก็ใส่เอฟเฟกต์ไปเป็นขึ้นเขียวไหมไม่แน่
If you're not playing Bloodwave, it's like
คิดว่าน่าจะ
as a Necromancer. And we decided that the best course of action for Soul Rift is to just kind of reduce some of its functionality. So it will still do all of those things except generate a barrier. The barrier generation was giving.
Soul Rift กดแล้วไม่ได้บาเรียโห
We felt a bit more at home in like the Bone Storm or Bloodwave kind of world. As kind of a more survivability ultimate.
Right.
Soul Rift will still give you lots of resource and still increases your damage by just a little bit instead of a ton. But we think that'll bring it a bit more down to earth and give some other options like Army of the Dead and Bone Storm a bit of chances to compete.
So overall, you would say it's kind of moving towards being, its theme is kind of like it's an engine for you, right? It sustains your potions, it gives you a sense, and that's its big, gameplay niche.
Yeah, rather than being kind of your defensive tanky.
ซีซั่นไหนสนุกสุด
Bloodwave as well has been the other ultimate skill that most Necromancers have been building around. This one just does a ton of damage, and a lot of that has come from some of the unique items that interact with it. They give kind of a disproportionate amount of damage output increase to your Bloodwave. Specifically Indira's Memory, which works on your pants, your leg armor. That's a slot which, for most characters that don't have a unique item, is not really an offensive slot. You can't really get a whole lot of bonus damage from that.
อ๋อซีซั่น2
We're looking to say, hey,
ซีซั่น Vault ใช่ไหม
pants in particular, we're going to be looking to reduce the damage output of there. They'll still have some damage output, but not quite as much. And so that's where we're looking to reduce the power of Bloodwave overall is on some
Bloodwave
that talk to it. But of course, we've got new things to play with on the Necromancer. We've got Skeletal Archmages.
Skeletal Archmage อะไรวะ
New unique, the Hand of Naz.
ไอเทมยูนิคใหม่
New unique gloves, which if you really want to
ห้ามใช้ Warrior ห้ามใช้ Golem
I just want mages. Maybe you're really
จำนวนมินเนี่ยนที่ Sacrifice ได้เมจเพิ่ม
If you sacrifice both your warriors and your golem, and so you are
เมจตีครบ25 ครั้ง กลายเป็น Archmage
mages for every minion that you sacrificed. So if you used to have a whole bunch of bonus
Skeleton Archmage เทเลพอร์ตไปในที่ปลอดภัยเวลาโดนโจมตีศัตรูที่โดน Archmage โจมตี Shatter แตกเป็นเสี่ยง
Skeletal Archmages. They get a little bit bigger, they get a little bit of a flashy visual, and the Skeletal Archmages will deal some bonus damage, and also whenever they are attacked, they will teleport away to safety because they are,
Minion ขายว่ะ
when you level up, you learn a new skill. Same thing with Skeletal Mages.
It's just the way it works.
Minion ขายดูดี
Let's take a look at this.
ขอดู Archmage อย่างแรกคือต้องตัวใหญ่ขึ้นก่อน
If you really spec into it.
เฮ้ยมันขาย
attack those mages. Occasionally they will teleport away. Their attacks now can do some additional burst damage, and they've got little like lightning effect on their hands, and they're a little bit bigger to show that they are promoted to Archmage status.
แปลงเลยไม่ได้เหรอเฮ้ย25 วิเอง25 ฮิตเอง
My warriors or my golem.
Right.
So now I'm the tank for my mages.
You do need to be tanking for your mages, right? It kind of turns the traditional minion playstyle of
เรา
like
แทงให้
my
Minion
minions go forward and protect me, and it turns it on its head, right? You have this powerful backline of a lot of mages who do bonus damage, but in exchange, you need
กลัวมันจะหลอนตอนไปจุดแคบ
protect themselves a little bit with the teleport away to safety, but
แปลว่ามันจะใช้โบนสเปียร์ได้แหละแบบนี้
Necromancer to be the front line in this kind of build.
It's pretty awesome.
All right, next up, we've got the Rogue. So the Rogue big talk has been their ultimate skills, Death Trap.
บายบาย Death Trap
ultimate skills are great. They have been
บายบาย Death Trap ยินดีต้อนรับเพนช็อต
Rogues no exception.
บัฟอยู่ก็ฮอน
Death Trap has been one of the most powerful builds for kind of 2 seasons in a row here. Similar to Soul Rift in a lot of ways, it kind of did a lot of everything. We also know that it did a ton of damage on its own, right? And it also had a unique pants item, the Eyes in the Dark, that really talked to it and increased its damage output dramatically. So much in the line of our philosophy of, hey, pants armor shouldn't be so ridiculous amount of damage output, even if it is unique. We've done some tuning on the Eyes in the Dark to make sure that Death Trap is not quite as explosively damaging as it has been in the past. We are looking to buff up the Infiltrators and Bursting Venoms, legendary items that talk to Poison Trap and Poison builds, and saying, hey, there's
แต่ดัน Poison Trap ให้เล่นให้ได้
Poison Trap. So giving a little bit more support here with those legendary reworks. And we also have some updates to Eagle Horn. This is the penetrating shot unique bow. Just some numerical buffs there to make sure it's actually hitting hard.
คิดว่าจะเล่นได้ไหมเพนช็อต
Has a bit more of a reason to use it. We know that kind of ranged rogues have fallen out of favor for a while. It's been a lot more about melee, and I mean Death Trap is even a melee kind of skill. And we know that players love to play ranged rogue as well. So we want to make sure that we give a
คิด
little
ว่ายาก
bit of
ว่ะ
support to that.
เพนช็อตเป็นหนึ่งในสกิลที่ผมอยากเล่นตั้งแต่ซีซั่นแรกแล้วไม่เคยเวิร์กสักทีเลยซีซั่นหนึ่งนะที่มันเล่นได้ดี
And if so, we have got a great unique coming next season. The
Unique Furry.
Mask of Nirmatruk.
ๆ Dead Mark of โอ้โหหมวกจบแล้ว คือยูนิคเป็นหมวกโคตรแย่ รู้ใช่ไหม เพราะหมวก Mystic มันโกง
That's a weird thing to say. What does that mean? It does mean that you spend your life total if you don't have enough energy. So energy, that's not a problem anymore. You have your whole life total to
Energy ไม่พอสเปนเลือดแทนได้
casting flurry, but when it does cost you your life total, when you're kind of overexerted in this state, it's going to stack up a buff. It's going to increase the attack speed of flurry, and it's going to increase its damage output for 5 seconds. So you really want to be in this kind of overexerted state. It doesn't actually do anything if you're not overexerting. So you really want to make sure that you're getting to this state. I love how this kind of
เดี๋ยวนี้ห้ามมีรีซอส
some of your like how you think about your build. You don't necessarily want a lot of resource regeneration.
Right.
You want more health regen. Because if you have too much resource, then maybe you're not even getting into this state as often as you'd like. Let's take a look at this in action. I actually really love this clip of the rogue just going super fast, right? So they sneak in, and as they're stacking up, you can see they've got like no resource. They go hyper fast. This is such a fast attacking skill when it's all stacked up. But of course,
มันจะตายอยู่แล้วเนี่ยมันตลกหรือเปล่าเนี่ยใครเป็นคนคิดวะเนี่ย
Yep.
And if you're really low, it's not going to kill you by doing this. You just won't be able to cast it there. But it does mean you're on very low life, and any stray attack might take you out if you're not super careful with it.
I will raise a flag for those of you curious about trying this out. It's called a death mask for a reason.
Yeah.
It might not necessarily be their
Death
death, it
mask.
might be yours. So be a
ใส่
little
แล้วตายเอง
On the positive side, you do get to look like an anime character zooming around like crazy. Look at that.
Absolutely.
Definitely hardcore players, beware with this one. Might be a little risky for you. All right, we've got the Sorceress next. So the Sorceress has been
Lightning Spear โดนเนิร์ฟปรับเบิร์น Enlightenment Hydra buff
I think one of the big talking
ใครจะเล่นก็เล่น
points around Sorceress for a while has been Lightning Spear. A lot of players have felt like that is the only or best way to play Sorc for a number of seasons now, and it's not just been just one season here. And one of the reasons for that, I'd say the main reason, is that Lightning Spear baseline is pretty bad. Like, if you just get the skill on its own with nothing
บอก
else,
ว่าใจแต่
it
hardcore
doesn't really do a whole lot of damage.
ถ้ากล้าเล่นนี่คือตึงมากอะ
Splintering
hardcore
Energy legendary, and suddenly it goes from 1 to 100 real quick.
Oh, yes.
That legendary aspect is like one of the most powerful in terms of like how much percentage gain does it give the skill in question. Splintering energy is like way far above really where we want legendary aspects to be, and that kind of speaks to this outlier concept we've been talking about, where when you have one particular source of power that is disproportionately valuable, like a key passive that scales crazy, or a splintering energy legendary, that's the only thing that matters, right? Is that maximizing the damage of this one thing is the only thing that matters, we find that that leads to some of these outlier situations, and it's also just not as fun. Like, nothing else in your build mattered. It's just about that one effect, whether it be a legendary or key passive.
We find that there's better build variety and
ทีมงานบอก Lightning Spear ง่ายไปครับ
balance when that power is
พอ
spread
โฟกัส
out
สแตทเดียวมัน
among
ง่าย
as
เกิน
many
ปรับ
different
ปรับ
sources that you might want as possible rather than concentrated so intensely in one.
Right, and so this was definitely one of the most egregious examples, I'd say, of concentrating the power in a single spot in that splintering energy aspect. So with that in mind, we've taken the baseline Lightning Spear and buffed up its damage rather substantially. But of course, the splintering energy has
บัฟ
dramatically
เบสดาเมจหอก Lightning Spear แต่ว่า Nerf Sprinting Energy
builds are going to be brought down quite a bit because they were
สรุปคือโดน Nerf ล่ะ
far above everyone else.
บอสคอดาเมจหลักๆมันมาจาก Sprinting Enemy
Of the overpower changes, or they relied on overpower to really get into the highest levels of pit pushing.
แล้วก็ Nerf Overpower 5 เท่าก็จบ
Overpower
ละ
is obviously a little bit weaker in this season, so we think that'll bring it down a bit. In exchange, we're looking at buffing up some of the other builds available to Sork. Specifically with burning, as one of the burning key passive, the combustion key passive, was one of those that was kind of uncapped scaling. It wasn't necessarily problematic, but maybe that was really just because Lightning Spear crowded it all out. Same with like Enlightenment kind of crowding out those options. We have put a cap on that, like we've said with the
Cap combustion
of making sure that no individual power source eclipses all others. But with that in mind, we did look and say, well, hey, this might be a little bit of a nerf to some other burning builds like Firewall or Incinerate. And so we've just done like a 25-ish% baseline buff to those burning skills just to make sure they can kind of be compensated for that.
แล้วก็บัฟสกิล Burning แต่ก็ไม่มีใครใช้อยู่ดี
Of the key passives that kind of blew past our power budget, so we've done a bit of rebalancing there. But also, we've got
Hydra-Yak.
new unique
มาดู Hydra-Yak ดีกว่า
favorites, huge Hydras.
Yes.
So this is the
Chad has been very excited for this. They saw you
สร้อยไฮด้าเป็นคอสกิลซัมมอนไฮด้า3 หัวตลอดเวลา
So we've got the
ตีแล้วระเบิด
This is an ancestral unique amulet, and here
ถ้าหัวมากกว่า 3 หัว
tag
จะกลายเป็นตัวใหญ่แทน
from a lot of your core skill bonuses, and it'll always summon a 3-headed Hydra on, rather than even if you had more heads, if you had like plus Hydra heads, you're still only going to get 3. That's the kind of the baseline number. But for each head that you would have had above 3, the Hydra goes larger and deals like 100% more damage per additional head. And so these big heads will also do splash damage rather than just a single target and hitting one enemy. They kind of explode on impact, just like they're shooting fireballs.
หัวละคูณ
So this is going to turn your Hydra from like a lot of spammy little tiny hits into individual bigger
กด
hits
ทีเดียว
with big Hydra
บอ
heads.
สตาย
It's no longer about how many
ขอดูหน่อย
get on my Hydra. It's
ขอดูหน่อย
how big
Hydra
can I
Yak
make my baby Hydra.
Yes.
Excellent.
So it'll scale up with its damage for every additional head that you got, and of course this has an inherent affix that casted Hydras do have +2 heads, which
Oh, there you go.
So you already have a bit of built-in multiplier on the amulet itself. So we've got a side-by-side comparison here, right? So on the left here, we've got the kind of baseline. You got 4 Hydra heads. They're fine. They're there. But after, if you really build up lots of bonus Hydra heads, you're only going to get 3, but they're gonna be much bigger than you, the character, and can be as big as some of those big elites running around the screen. And of course, with splashing, explosion, fire attacks, it should be a lot more appealing. We've also taken a look at updating some other things on Hydra. We removed its baseline mana cost, increased its lucky hit chance, and also done some other modifications to Conjuration and Hydra legendaries, just to make sure that like kind of a Hydra build really makes a lot of sense and is able to be competitive. So really love to hear feedback in the PTR about how these kind of builds land. And last but not least, we've got the Spiritborn. So the Spiritborn
Spiritborn
has been
มีคลาสนี้ด้วยเหรอ
it's been furthest behind, I'd say, in terms of on the current live season, and so we're definitely looking at. I think they're going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of the basic skill rebalancing work that we did, where we looked at every basic skill and doubled or tripled the baseline values of a lot of them. But in exchange, some of the scalars.
ทีมงานบอกว่าน่าจะเป็นผู้ที่รับประโยชน์จากการบัฟสกิลเบสิกสูงสุด
The net result is still that basic skill builds will be better than before, and I think Spiritborn is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of that. Additionally, we've also got an update to the deflection aspect with Razor Wings build. Previously, this was one of those legendaries that didn't really have a home. It dealt like a percentage of counter attacks damage, and counter attack does not do damage. So a percent of 0 is 0.
Yeah.
So now it's going to increase the Razor Wings itself damage when
คลาสเดียวที่ไม่มีเนิร์ฟเลยเพราะไม่มีอะไรให้เนิร์ฟ
gameplay, and so just a little bit more kind of multiplicative damage support for Razor Wings build. Following with the theme of ultimate skills on all classes, as well being kind of a little too strong. The Hunter ultimate, the Jaguar ultimate, has been the ultimate on Spiritborn since its launch. That really
อ้าวโอ้เนิร์ฟเสือว่ะเนิร์ฟอันตีเสือสแปม
90+% of Spiritborn players are using a Hunter currently, and that's great that you're having a lot of fun with it, but it also means that there's other options that aren't really being explored. It's kind of taking up all the space in the build variety. And so one of the reasons for that is that the Hunter it resets itself. If you cast it and then kill an enemy, it's going to reset itself, and it can kind of chain reset. And the chance of chain resetting reduces every time it does, and so it just kind of like feels bad whenever you're like, oh, I guess I ran out of luck and now I have to wait.
Yeah.
We found that to be like kind of degenerately powerful for anything that triggers on when you cast an ultimate, but also it was just not fun.
สวัสดีครับเด็กครับ
Failed to get that reset.
Yeah.
And so we're looking at reworking the exact mechanics of the way the Hunter reset works. So it'll still have that like kind of cooldown reduction theme, but it won't be quite as feast or famine as it was in the past. We've also got a new unique item. This one is the Balatan's Maxiltol.
Balazan
I
Maxiltol.
might have mispronounced that. Maxiltol. I literally looked up how to pronounce this morning, and I tried.
That's
It's
good.
It's a tricky one, Charles. It's a very tricky one.
So this works with Poison and Thorns builds, kind of hybridizing those two together. So
กระท้อนพิษ
attacks against close enemies. When you're attacking close up, you're up close and personal. You're going to do bonus percent of your Thorns damage, but as poisoning over 3 seconds. So you get a kind of a free way to apply poisoning here. But if you've also been hit recently and
ตอนมี
you've been with your Thorns, then that poison
300%
damage is going to be increased even further. So it really allows
เป็น
you
เบ
to
สดาเมจ
convert your Thorns damage into offense. And it does even reward you for actually getting hit with that Thorns. But a lot of this is going to come in that poisoning damage when you're hitting the enemies up close and personal.
Yeah, I love how this
ไม่
unit
แย่นะ
really takes
ไม่แย่นะ
core
ถูก
concept
ปะ
of thorns, which is you must be hit, but still it like empowers you very intensely in terms of your offense by leaning into that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it definitely solves that problem where previous Thorns builds were kind of
ต้องโดนตีไม่งั้นไม่มีดาเมจอันนี้ไม่ต้องตีได้
pure Thorns of like just build Thorns and nothing else to be too powerful, because then you just walk in and you AFK and everything dies, and that's not necessarily fun gameplay. And so I think this does a really good job of straddling the line of active and passive gameplay that Thorns players would really want.
Totally.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of class changes coming in the PTR, and so we'd love to hear all the feedback you have around, do these unique items and the legendary reworks and the other balance changes, are these builds good, right? Can you play that Hydra Sorc? Is it reasonable to play in Torment 4 at the highest levels when you have like the really maxed out stuff and every point along the progression, and not just that build, every build that I talked about here. We're also really looking to make sure that we get feedback on the basic skill update. Like I said, we touched every single basic skill in the game. There might be some outliers still, some things that are a little too strong, a little too weak. And as we're going to be doing similar passes and looking at other kind of categories of skills.
เบสิกสกิลทุกสกิลในเกมบางอันก็เนิร์ฟบางอันก็บัฟส่วนใหญ่บัฟเพิ่มดาเมจ 3-4 เท่า
And finally, I just wanted to make sure that we really are focusing on kind of shifting up that very top of the meta. I talked a lot about some nerfs to the really overperforming builds, specifically Overpower, because we do want to make sure that Season 9, you don't feel like, oh, it's all the same builds all again at the top of the meta for the third season in a row. We really don't want that to be the case. We want to make sure there's new options for players who really want to push the limit of their character, and it's not just the same thing over and over again.
Totally.
Wow, well, Charles, take a bow. That was an incredible section. I mean, players are going to have a ton to chew on in the PTR. That is an absolute smattering.
อยากได้เสื้อลิลิตสวยมาก
Correctly.
I mean, you nailed it. I was ready to razz you on the Spiritborn unique again. I'm like, oh, man's been practicing. That's fantastic. So yeah, patch notes and the blog do hit following the stream. So if you miss
หลัง
anything,
สตรีมจบ
any
แผ่น
of
โน้ต
the
อัปโหลด
sections,
นะครับ
we'll have those available following the stream, so you can get in and really get into the nitty-gritties of all those changes. But we do have some more changes still coming that are going to affect the entire game. So Aislinn, I know we've got some systems. We kind of teased it. Dan
ระบบใหม่
at the start of the stream.
ที่จะมีผลกับเกมทั้งเกม
Finally get into it. What do you have?
ถาวร
Yeah, let's
มันคือระบบ
discuss
ที่ชื่อว่า
guys. So the first one I want to talk about is the the seasonal activity variety. That's the next one. So something we saw
Elite,
in season 8
Boss
was the
granting
added,
seasonal reputation, Rare Horde granting seasonal currency.
And it was for the season of the boss, which we really ended up liking. The reason we like it a ton is because it touches all parts of the game. Like you need to go to a bunch of different places to actually get layer keys. And so if layer bosses in the end game are a thing that provide access to seasonal progression, that kind of naturally disseminates out to the entire game experience, which we really, really liked. So we actually want to keep that going forward. And we
ก็จะเป็นระบบนี้ต่อไป
use that,
ตีบอส เราได้เลเวล
any other way
ของ
players
กระดาน
can
บอร์ด
earn,
ซีซั่น
seasonal reputation or seasonal currency in a given season. And the same is true not just in Torment, but across the entire game through elites and bosses granting seasonal reputation. Whenever you kill any elites or any boss in the game in Season 9, you are going to earn seasonal reputation. And this is tying directly into that problem we were having where, we felt really pressured to go to Apparition Incursion.
Apparition Incursion เป็นคอนเทนต์ที่ไม่ค่อยดีนะ นอกจากเปิดล็อกพลังตอนแรกหลังจากนั้นก็ไม่ค่อยน่าลงแล้ว
Amazing Nightmare Dungeon updates, but we also want to make sure that if you end up finding yourself in Helltide or in a stronghold because you felt like it, you're actually earning progress and the game's rewarding you for playing it, basically.
This makes me so happy because I'm a very scatterbrained player. I'm always, I'm going to do this activity, then this one, then this one. But now I get to feel good all the time.
Yeah, that's the hope.
So thank you for that. That's awesome.
Of course. So that's the hope with this update. And I just want to reiterate, there are still going to be really powerful and good ways to earn seasonal reputation and currency, specifically through interacting with the season. These are on top of all of that other stuff so that you can just go do a bunch of cool stuff. So yeah, that's that. And let's talk more about the Nightmare Sigils.
Nightmare Sigil อันใหม่ มีมอดใหม่
We talked a little bit about it when Dan was talking about this, and I actually want to preface this section with something that's not listed here, but I think you guys might want to know. You can now teleport to Nightmare Dungeons from inside a Nightmare Dungeon.
ต่อไปนี้สามารถลง Nightmare Dungeon จาก Nightmare Dungeon ได้ ไม่ต้องออกเข้า
There you go. It's going to be a lot smoother to go from Nightmare Dungeon to Nightmare Dungeon in Season 9 and going forward in Diablo 4. Very happy about that because it was kind of annoying to have to leave the dungeon and then go to the next one, but that's no longer a thing. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about these new affixes and what's so cool.
แล้วก็มีมอดอัพไซด์ใหม่
In live right now, there were only 2 positive affixes in the game. There was an
ณ ปัจจุบันมีแค่
experience
2 มอด
and a gold affix.
มอดเพิ่มตังค์กับมอดเพิ่ม EXP
And we kind of wanted to take a step back and be like, how can we inject a lot more depth and ways for you to find what you're actually looking for in a Nightmare Dungeon? And so what we decided and landed on was we wanted to make a lot more positive affixes, and we wanted to assign a rarity system to them so that sometimes when you crafted or found a Nightmare Dungeon sigil, you'd get really rare ones that were really powerful. And other
ต่อไปนี้จะมีมอดที่หายากมากๆเช่นมอดสีเหลืองตรงกลาง
ones that might give you a specific kind of reward, which
แล้วก็
is really useful.
รางวัลมีผลมากกว่าแค่ Gold กับ
For
EXP
example, we have the Horadric Materials Reserve. This one gives you a smattering of different resources that you might need. So if you find yourself low on Forgotten Souls or other kinds of
อาจจะได้
resources,
Forgotten Soul
you can
อาจจะได้
go to this Nightmare
ที่เจาะ
Dungeon
รู
and stock up on that stuff. And we have some other affixes like that, for example, specifically gems or different kinds of gems, which also helps you stock up on whichever kinds of gems you might be needing.
อาจจะเป็นเจม
And then there
ที่
are
หายากพอสมควร
like the
ในซีซั่น
experience one, the gold one, and a lot of other miscellaneous affixes that will just, hopefully be really fun to just go in and poke around and pick which ones are the best for you. And another thing I really wanted to call out is that we specifically wanted to avoid
แล้วก็เอามอดดาวไซด์ที่ทำให้มอดบิวบางธาตุเล่นได้ยากออกไปเป็นมอดที่ยากโดย general แทน
Diablo's development, or excuse me, Diablo 4 being live, was there were negative affixes that would say, you deal less shadow damage or whatever. And if your build was a shadow build, that kind of didn't feel great. And so we wanted to make sure that all of these negative affixes were more agnostic of speaking directly to your build, but still provided a challenge. And so with these two changes together, we're really hoping that we're going to see a lot more.
แต่ลืมว่า Nightmare Dungeon จะมีเวอร์ชันอัปเกรดด้วยเดี๋ยวรอดูต่อไป
And that they're not going to feel too frictioned, or you're not going to find a Nightmare Dungeon that just that feels like it's telling you, no, you're not allowed to play me. Like, we don't want that happening. And again, this is a permanent update to the game. We've done this because it is, a season very heavily focused on Nightmare.
คอนเทนต์ถาวรนะครับการอัปเดตเนี่ยนะไม่ได้อยู่แค่ซีซั่น 9
We're super stoked that it's going to be going forward. And we want to hear what you have to say about it. That, like I said, there's a lot of different affixes. Let us know how they feel. Run through these dungeons. Let us know how interacting with the mechanics in them works, and if you like it or not. And we'll be able to take that feedback and make the system even better for Season 9's launch.
Yeah, that was actually a question that Addiction had in Twitch chat, which is, are these dungeon changes permanent? And so for this section, all these changes that Aizen's speaking to are permanent, and the same thing with Escalating Nightmares and Horadric Strong Rooms. Those are going to persist beyond the 230 PTR in Season 9. So, and then everything Aizen's getting to now, that's all going to affect the Eternal and Seasonal. And
ทุกคอนเทนต์ที่จะพูดหลังจากนี้ก็เช่นกันนะครับอยู่ถาวรไม่ใช่เฉพาะคอนเทนต์ซีซั่น 9
All right, cool. Yeah, I think we have an asset here kind of showing off what you might be able to find in a Nightmare Dungeon. So that
กระจกอะไรก็ไม่รู้
purpley mirror thingy is a Horadric artifact, which
เป็น
is
Horadric artifact
part of one of the new affixes that you'll actually find when venturing into Nightmare Dungeons. And of course, our rogue is getting rid of this pesky blood blister. So yeah, can't wait for you to try it all out. It's going to be fun. Next up, we have
quality ของไอเทม
drum roll, please.
I'm so excited.
I'm very, very happy and excited and proud to be able to say we are increasing the quality of items per Torment tier. And what this means is when you go into Torment 2 or then further into 3 or 4, you are going to find more ancestral items. You are going to find more ancestral items from all
ไอเทมติดดาว
This
คูณ
includes
เยอะขึ้นตามความยาก
When you go and fight a layer boss
รวมไปถึง
Torment tier, you are going
การ
to
ฟาร์มบอสในเทียร์สูงสุด โอกาสของติดดาวก็เยอะขึ้นกว่าเดิมมากๆด้วย
is true throughout the world when things are just dropping randomly. This is true in the pit.
ทุก
This
content
is true everywhere. We really like this change. We think that it rewards you for ascending the Torment tier in a very impactful, like we say, punch you in the face kind of way. And it's not so intense that it feels required, though, to go to higher torments. And that's something we also really want to make sure we get right, because we want to ensure that we're in
ไม่ได้เยอะจนขนาดที่ว่าต้องเล่นทอร์เมนต์สูงเท่านั้นแต่เป็นเครื่องกระตุ้นให้เราอยากขึ้นทอร์เมนต์เทียร์เร็วๆที่สุดเท่าที่เป็นไปได้
So please go on, try this out, see if you can feel the difference.
เข้าไปลองเล่นกันใน PTR นะครับว่ามีความแตกต่างหรือเปล่าทีมงานก็กระตุ้นอยากให้คนเข้ามาลองเยอะ
And that's just another topic that we'd love to hear your feedback on. All right. And with that said, let's just talk about a bit of more miscellaneous reward economy stuff. So here there's some
เพิ่มโอกาสดรอปรู Legendary โดยรวมมากขึ้น Rebuild of Harmony เพิ่มจำนวนรูมที่ดรอป Under City Tribute การันตีดรอปรูนทุก Tribute
So we've just increased the chance across the whole game to get that back to a point where it feels like if you were playing
Whisper Cache Resource ได้ของเพิ่มขึ้น Jewelry Cache ใช้ราคาน้อยลง เพิ่มเจมที่ดอกจาก Infernal Horde
when you actually run a tribute of harmony, it feels like a big burst. Like it's like, oh yes, okay, cool. This is a lot of runes. This is fantastic. And so now, if you really do want to find a lot of those runes, tributes of harmony are going to be a really good bet. We also kind of just want to inject identity into Undercity tributes in general, that they now all just drop a rune always. So now just in general,
เอ็นเกมจริงเลยใหม่ๆน่าจะลงพิษคอนเทนต์ที่ยากที่สุดในเกมมันก็ยังเป็นพิษอยู่ดีครับคอนเทนต์ในเกมอื่นมันเป็นฟาร์มเฉพาะกิจ ฟาร์มเพื่อรูนฟาร์มเพื่อเงินฟาร์มเพื่อวัตถุดิบตีบวกอะไร
So we were finding that the gold whisper cache, the materials whisper cache, and the gem fragment whisper cache just weren't really giving you enough for the opportunity cost against the other kinds. So we just bumped up how much those are giving you of their respective thing pretty substantially. You can also now actually find whole gems inside gem fragment whisper caches. And it's only a chance for some of the good ones. Like, for example, I think there's actually a very small chance to find a grand gem now in a gem cache.
เจมแคชมีโอกาสได้เจมเป็นเม็ดรวมไปถึงเม็ดใหญ่สุดด้วย
My day. That sounds so cool. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, let's go. And oh yes, this is one of my personal favorites. So we saw that the Jewelers of Sanctuary had adopted some wanderer unfriendly practices, and their caches were perhaps a bit too expensive. And we have decided to, crack down on that and make sure that they are being more friendly to our wanderers. So now here we have these different jewelry cache types. Their cost has
เมื่อก่อนใช้
been
150,000 ตอนนี้เหลือ
and on top of that, not only has their cost been significantly
30,000 ลด
reduced,
ลง 5 เท่า
but they're going to give you
แล้วก็ได้
quite a
ของ
bit
เยอะขึ้น
more,
ด้วย
actual jewelry. So with the gem fragment increases, or rather like different sources of getting more gem fragments and the reduced cost and the increased stuff from the caches, they should be more lucrative. And finally, talking about gems, we have increased the amount of gems you're going to be getting from Infernal Hordes as well. Again, punch you in the face. At this point, I'm sorry if I've given you a bloody nose, but that's
lots of face punching today. Yeah. There's a through line in the stream.
Yes.
Poison puddles and
We're
face
rated
punching.
M for excitement.
There you go. Yeah, but thank you guys for listening to the systems updates.
System update ที่จะมีตั้งแต่ซีซั่น 9 เป็นต้นไปนะครับ
These are sometimes a little challenging to test within a PTR environment because you're getting like all these boosts and it only lasts a short period of time. But if this kind of stuff interests you, please, by all means, test it out. Let us know what you think. Give us all the feedback on it you want because everything is just super valuable for us to tweak it to make it even more awesome.
Yeah, like as Dan said, Dan did, as I'm citing Dan, one of the things he said is like now is the time that we can turn the knobs and really juice things up. So definitely go in and like take your time with a lot of these changes. Some of them might not feel impactful at first, but like really get a feel for how things have shifted because there are so many different components in this PTR that it's gonna, there's a ton of different influences from all the different areas of the game. So that's really exciting, Aislinn. I'm super excited to check those things out, get some more jeweler caches.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the 230 PTR, so some just general reminders for everyone watching. It's going to be exclusively on PC Battle.net, and it'll be
PC Battle.net เท่านั้น
May 27th until June 3rd. So get in, test it out.
อาทิตย์หน้านะครับ
Feedback. The PTR forums
27 เดือน 5 ถึง 3 เดือน 6
for you to drop your feedback. Of course, we will be monitoring our socials as usual, but we will be definitely looking into the forums to get most of the feedback there. The PTR boost will be available right outside of Kiovashad. Marak, our favorite dancing demons there. Marak, he's got to be getting fit for the summer. His offerings are so diversified this time around. Like, you can really segment out between seasonal currency into the different like item caches. Like, there's a lot of great custom boosts that you can get from Marak. So he is there. He's in Kiovashad. He's happy to see you as always. And yeah, give us your feedback on the PTR forums. We're really looking forward to it, but definitely get in there and test and give us all your feedback. And with that, that brings us to our Q&A portion of the stream. So hopefully you've been dropping your questions in Twitch chat. We're really excited to get into it. But first off, we do want to take a moment to address our first question, which is what are we potentially doing about reliquaries? So this is our first stream since Season 8 launched with the Reliquary. It was our team's first big swing at changing the battle passes in a big way, bringing in
Reliquary ระบบ Battle Pass แบบใหม่
more enhanced rewards, giving some more choice to the players. We have heard your overwhelming feedback. We know that this is a system with some mixed feelings. And so we are the team is working very hard in the background. We are looking to bring some more things into the Reliquary to really give you some of that value. And, this is something we've been talking about a lot. Thank you all for the feedback on it. We've been reading that, across forums, the socials.
ซีซั่น 9 ช่วงไหน น่าจะปลาย 7 ต้น 8 ประมาณนี้ครับ
We do have an event reliquary that is coming up around the corner. So in a couple weeks, in pretty soon, you'll get another event reliquary to dig your teeth into. But it is something the team has noted. We don't have a timeline on it, but it is something that we will implement in the future. So thank you again for that. Additionally, with Season 8, we also had the Berserk collaboration, which, like, Aislinn, I know you've got the Brand of Sacrifice on right now. Like, you're a huge Berserk fan. I became a fan once we started the IP collab. It's been really fun seeing all the, like, Guts and Griffiths running around in game. But again, we have heard your feedback on that IP collaboration, and we've taken that into account. And for those of you that know the roadmap, we do have another IP collab coming down the pipe in the future. So we want to take that feedback from the Berserk collab and really integrate that.
มีคอลแลบต่อจาก Berserk รอดูอยู่แล้วนะครับ
better diversify and change up some of the ways that you access those pieces of content from the IP collab. So again, thank you very much for your feedback. We do really appreciate it. You know, ongoing game dev is an iterative process, and the community is a very big part of that. So we very much appreciate it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you for that. And yeah, with that, let's get into Q&A. Okay. So thank you. Shout out to the community team for grabbing all these questions.
ใช่ครับซีซั่นนี้สั้นกว่าซีซั่นปกติ
What are we going to start off with? All right. Renata Kane. This one, maybe, I might send this one to Dan first. Will you be able to find Horadric strongholds inside Escalating Nightmares?
Yeah, you absolutely will.
Horadric stronghold อยู่ใน Nightmare back to back to back อย่าง escalating ได้ไหมคำตอบคือได้ อะไรก็ตามที่คุณเจอใน Nightmare Dungeon เจอได้ใน escalating Nightmare ทั้งหมด
Awesome. Love that. The Rudder. These new dungeon changes will be available in the Eternal Realm at the start of next season?
Yes, the Nightmare Dungeon affix changes. I think I might need to throw it to
การเปลี่ยนแปลงทุกอย่างอยู่ใน Eternal ด้วย
So they're permanent additions to the game. So yeah, they should be available in Eternal. They should all be available in Eternal.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. One other question. I didn't have this. It didn't catch the name as it was flying past, but people were asking, where is mouse and keyboard on console? That is still coming with Season 9. However, because the 230 PTR is exclusive,
Control ใช้เมาส์คีย์บอร์ดได้เมื่อไหร่ใช้ได้
However, that is still coming. So
ในซีซั่น
fear not. Wow. Okay, I have to read this question just because of the username. Big Daddy Den 76. This one's for you, Charles. Okay. With Soul Rift not generating barrier, how is Necromancer going to gain defense?
There's lots of different options for Necromancer to gain defense.
โซลิฟกดแล้วไม่ได้บาเรียทำไงถึงจะถึง
some new options in the the seasonal Horadric spellcraft. You've got Fortify through some of the blood magic. You've got other ways of generating barrier, but not just on Soul Rift. They've got some passive and some other ways of generating barrier from legendaries. And you may just need to, access some of the defensive legendary options that are out there, which have typically been very underutilized just because you had other ways of solving that defense. We still think Soul Rift will be pretty appealing because it has, like a lot of resource gain. But if you really want pure defense, then maybe look at some of the blood skills. Maybe look at Bone Storm instead, which still has a large damage reduction component attached to it as well.
Right.
Fantastic. Mippy, are there any updates on tempering and masterworking?
Masterwork temper มีการเปลี่ยนแปลงบ้างไหม
Masterworking is something that we have been talking about internally.
คุยกันภายใน
nothing to share exactly yet about how
ยังไม่มีบทสรุปมาให้ ยังไม่เกิดขึ้นใน PTR.
What I can say in terms of a quality of life update, in 222, so the patch coming out in Season 8, we are actually going to be updating the amount of non-gold, non-obdicite resource and materials that it costs to masterwork.
currency ทุกอย่างที่ไม่ใช่โกลแล้วก็ obdicite จะโดนลดลงแปลว่าทำให้ดำได้ง่ายขึ้น
We were seeing that people that were
ในซีซั่น 8 นี้
the end game would end up like effectively deprecating the need for the gold and even potentially the obdicite and then getting blocked by those other resources. But that was never actually the intent of the system. It was there, those resource costs were there to like slow you down basically, or just rather friction you in other ways, and tax those resources, never to be like the primary thing that blocks you. And so we don't want that to happen, so we've pulled back pretty significantly on how much that actually costs.
Yeah.
But beyond that, stay tuned as we keep filtering through feedback, and please keep giving us feedback.
That's really great, Ethan. Like I know we've all been masterwork blocked at a specific point, so anything to reduce friction in that system is pretty great. Liam, this one's for you. Scroll of Wisdom. With a system like Horadric being this awesome,
กดแล้ว Masterwork เพิ่มได้
a permanent part of the game. I already feel sad knowing it's going to leave the game for the next season's power.
So I can't specifically speak on that, but what I will say is nothing is ever truly gone because we are developers. We have access to everything, right?
พลังซีซั่นไม่ได้แปลว่าหายไปเลยข้อมูลที่ทำมาแล้วคีย์มาแล้วมันอยู่ตลอดเพราะฉะนั้นจะเอากลับมาเมื่อไหร่ก็ได้
We love all the seasonal stuff we create, and yeah, who knows for the future.
Yeah, it's something we've seen in previous seasons where, like, way back in season 2 when we first did the vampiric powers, we brought some of them back as some of the more popular ones back as unique items. Once again, we're not committing to any particular bringing back, but it's always on our radar, and that's why we love hearing feedback about the things that really resonate with players, and then that can help
อะไรดีๆทีมงานบอกว่ามีโอกาสจะเอากลับมาหมดละปรับปรุงเปลี่ยนแปลงไปเป็นในรูป legendary aspect item unique
we're always listening to that and it's always on the table to bring them back the ones that really
มีโอกาสที่จะเอากลับมาได้ทั้งหมด
Nice. Party Cannon 1990, very fun name. Will there in the future be a possibility that the Nightmare Sigils can have active whispers shown on them?
Yeah, that's another thing that we've seen a lot of folks talk about. It's something we're interested in exploring that space.
กุญแจ Nightmare โชว์ได้ไหมว่ากุญแจนี้มี whisper อยู่จะได้ไม่ต้องเช็คเอง
Season 9, that's not something that's going to be directly in the season.
น่าเป็นคุณภาพชีวิตที่ดี
We look to make these kinds of changes going forward pretty consistently. So if that's something you feel strongly about, please keep letting us know, and we'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. This one, Charles, I feel like I already know what you're going to say to this. Cop Mando, will there be any more balance changes for the current season?
For season 8.
ซีซั่น8จะมีปรับ
that is live.
อีกไหม
Currently, no. There's no plans for any more balance changes on season 8.
ไม่มีแพลนจะปรับอะไรในซีซั่น8เกี่ยวกับบาลานซ์แล้ว
Live on the game. We've updated our seasonal balance cadence a little bit. So now, starting in season 8 and going forward even into season 9, we're going to have the PTR before the season. That's when we do kind of our initial batch of like, hey, these are the balance changes we're looking at. We take in a lot of the feedback from the PTR, and then we iterate on it. And we when it goes live, the season goes live. We say, hey, here's the live season. We'll take the immediate feedback from that if there's any kind of progression breakers, things that are really outlier, things that we kind of missed, or an interaction that oops that wasn't intended.
ต่อไปไทม์ไลน์จะเป็นแบบนี้ PTR เปิดซีซั่นแพทใหญ่เข้าปรับระหว่างซีซั่น1ครั้งจบ
bring it down to earth or to bring some of those builds that were really underperforming our mark and bring those up a little bit. But after that point, our intention is to really let the season ride, right? Once you're about 2 weeks into the season, you've already committed some time into your build, you've invested in your character, and we really want to respect that time investment. And we don't want to come in and say, oh, just kidding, we're going to dramatically change the meta on you right after you've already done all that investment. We just know that's going to feel bad for everyone involved. And so we've really committed to making
เพราะฉะนั้นแพทกลางซีซั่นหลังจากเกมเปิดประมาณ2อาทิตย์ Final Patch ที่เกี่ยวกับบาลานซ์ที่ไม่ใช่บั๊กหลังจากนั้นปล่อยเกมไหล
Yeah, honestly, it's like I'm really glad at the way we do it too, because like even for season 8, having it be a bit of a shorter season, it would be so rough to you're like, okay, I've got these 2 months with with my build and with these boss powers, so then to have almost like the rug pulled halfway through and being unable to really get into the nitty gritties of it and stick with that build. So
yeah, and that gives us as developers and like designers looking at this data and thinking about these balance changes, it allows us to kind of take our focus off season 8 and focus more on season 9. And so we're going to be putting out higher quality balance changes and higher quality releases by kind of moving on from a season to focus on the next one earlier. That just gives us more time to look at that data and really deliver high quality releases season over season.
So the little plug I'm going to put, please play the PTR because we're all a bunch of nerds. And I promise you, when you're playing the PTR, we are watching and we are just reading all the things being said. And it is so fun and meaningful to us to see people reacting and giving us new ways to improve the things we've made.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. 110%.
150.
We will be reading your feedback. Do not worry about that. Karoy Nekamata. I think, Liam, this will be, it could be one for you, but maybe for the whole team. Would you consider the possibility that one can disable the effects of other players or at least dim them down so that one is not always flashed when, i.e. Sorks, like 4 Sorks are running around? And I could see that with the powers coming in this season. They are so bright and visual that
ปิดเอฟเฟกต์ผู้เล่นคนอื่นได้ไหม
Horadric spells are pretty insane, and I know like we've had Earthquake Barbarians running around covering the ground with broken ground.
Guilty.
Yeah. So this is definitely things we're considering. Like we all, play the game and we play in parties, so we know what it's like when everything is just cluttered and insane.
กำลังตัดสินใจอยู่
I can't speak to broadly everything. I've heard bits and pieces. You could talk about that, Charles or Aislinn. But I know with the Horadric spells, we are making use of some tech to do that on some of the powers, such as with the pets, the cosmic anomalies. You're not going to see
บางอย่างสกรีนอัตโนมัติเช่นพลังของผู้เล่นคนอื่นพลังประจำซีซั่นของผู้เล่นคนอื่น
Necromancer minions. We'll be using that kind of thing for them.
Yeah, this is a kind of overarching pain point that I think surfaces from time to time, which is very reasonable and fair. And it's something that the team considers, especially with every new release, the Horadric Spellcraft. I'm glad we're doing that. And it's something that they take into with a lot of consideration, and they want to protect the visual clarity of the game, but they also want to make sure that people can see the things they want to see. So if there are certain things that crop up that you find particularly egregious in that way, especially during the PTR, please play the PTR. Let us know, and we can get that information to the team, and we can talk about it.
Oh yeah. I got a question here from Airsoft Daniel. At Diablo, what changes will be made to reliquaries in Season 9 to provide more value to paying players? So kind of similar to what I addressed at the start of the stream, we do have some changes
ระบบ Battle Pass
to add some more content into reliquaries. It's unclear as to whether or not that's going to be hitting
ไม่รู้จะปรับอะไรบ้างแต่มีการปรับแน่นอนเพราะว่าฟีดแบ็กค่อนข้างชัดเจนว่าคอนเทนต์น้อยไปใน Battle Pass อันใหม่
that content into the reliquaries moving forward, so it's definitely something to look out for. Probably not Season 9, but definitely in the future. And I think we've got time for one last question. Let's see. Ice Panther. This one's for you, Charles. Are you bringing out any more new items, ancestral or mythics, into the new season?
So for the new season, we're going to be releasing one new unique item per class. The ones we highlighted on stream here.
ยูนิคใหม่ประจำแต่ละคลาส
There's no additional items, unique or legendaries that we didn't talk about. But there will be some new, relatively new legendary effects because we did some substantial reworks of, we basically said, hey, this was
rework aspect ใหม่
talked to Grizzly Rage was my main example, and we just kind of completely changed its effect. So in some way, those are kind of new, but they're not brand new in terms of like a brand new legendary to collect.
And we didn't go over those reworked legendaries explicitly on the stream, but they are going to be testable in the PTR.
แต่มีการปรับ
PTR, they'll be in the patch notes blog once
อันใหม่แบบใหม่แกะกล่องอาจจะไม่มีสำหรับ aspect
kind of reworks. We're naturally limited on time. This stream is already going quite a while. So we wanted to make sure that we, there are more class balance changes and more content than we even talked about here. So make sure you check out the blog afterwards for all those
อย่า
details.
ลืมเช็คแพทช์กันสำหรับคนที่อยากรู้แพทช์รายละเอียดนะครับเพราะการเปลี่ยนแปลง เป็นรายลักษณ์อักษรชัดเจนกว่าอาจจะพูดไม่หมด
This one has been a beefy stream for sure. Patch notes and the PTR blog are going to be hitting following this stream. It is a very, very substantial blog, so we will have all localized languages available early next week. But you can check those out when those do go live. The PTR is going to be available from May 27th to June 3rd on PC Battle.net. I want to give a huge thank you to all the developers that have been here today. Dan coming in all the way from Albany. Thank you
ขอบคุณคนดูทุกคนด้วยนะครับสำหรับสตรีมวันนี้เกือบ2 ชั่วโมง
And to all of you at home, thank you for tuning in. Like Aislinn said to start the stream, we love that you played Diablo 4. We love being a part of this process, and you guys are a very big part of that. Thank you to our production crew. There's a ton of hands that work behind the scenes to make these streams possible. They work very tirelessly. So thank you to them for helping bring these streams to life. And yeah, we will see you all for the 230 PTR
ขอบคุณ developer ทุกคน
Sanctuary.
ทั้งสตูแคลิฟอร์เนียสตูนิวยอร์กนะ
Stick around following the stream because we will have a Diablo creator. We're going to be rating Rizar J on both YouTube and Twitch. So stick around for more great.
ไว้เจอกันโอกาสหน้าคืนนี้ลาไปก่อนเด็กละ
In the 230 PTR.
สวัสดีครับ
Sanctuary.
Bye. Thank you.